Hello. Today we're installing a new air filter on this 2018 BMW 540i with the B58 inline 6-cylinder. This should apply to all models from 2016 up to 2021 or so, something like that. Putting in a new air filter, I went with this brand, part number. This is from FCP Euro, lifetime replacement, can't go wrong with that. I saw a couple videos on replacing this air filter on similar cars, including the G30 5 Series, and some people have been taking out this support bar, and others take out this entire air box, and it's not really necessary. I'm going to show you all you need to do, really. There are three main things that you need to disconnect. One of those three is a group of screws. The other two are going to be this connector, which is the MAP sensor or mass airflow sensor connector. The other thing is unscrewing this hose clamp. Should probably use my pointer. This hose clamp, you just loosen it up so that you can disconnect this intake hose from the airbox, and then the connector, and then you need to undo all of these screws all around the box. These are T25 screws. So I have a T25 screwdriver, and I have a nut driver or a flat blade screwdriver to undo the hose clamp. There's a trick to taking off this connector. When it's still connected, you just very gently pry up this locking pin. And once that locking pin is pried up, you use the locking pin to press down with your thumb, and you just pull this connector off and put it over here to the side. Once that connector is off, you can access the screw that's down here. It's not hard to get to. You just use a screwdriver, but you can't really get to it when the sensor's there. Now I'm going to show you the trick to taking this lid off once you undo all of these screws. As these screws unscrew, let me show you. As I unscrew this screw, it gets to the point where the screw is just kind of loose. It's not attached anymore, but it's going to stay inside of this upper lid, and that's a good thing because we don't want to lose them. I'm going to unscrew this one that's way deep down there until it's loose, and I'll show you what happens. This is going to be sealed really tight because it's rubber gasket and it's against plastic, so it's going to kind of form its own seal. So you just pull this up until you start to feel that seal come undone. You're going to want to make sure all your screws are all undone. It should be loose like this. If it's not flapping around like this, then you probably still have your screws tightened up somewhere. Then, kind of in one motion with your right hand, you're going to hold onto this air hose while you use your left hand to grab this air box and sort of twist and pull away from that air hose. Okay, so I'm going to do that for a second and I'll be right back. Okay, so I twisted on the airbox lid and I pulled, and it's like it still won't come out of this air hose. You're going to be thinking, what's going on? Well, the deal is that little pesky screw down there that was below the connector, if that thing is down, like drop down in a down position, it will keep you from pulling your airbox, this way in that direction. So the trick is keep your magnetic pickup tool in your right hand, or just make sure you've unscrewed this screw enough that it sticks up into the upper airbox and not falling down to lock itself in place. So I'm going to wiggle this lid a minute, wiggle a little bit, and you can see with my pickup tool I can grab that screw, and I've grabbed it so that it's not drop down farther into the lower box area. And so that sort of unlocks this airbox lid from coming out. So now I'm able to wiggle it out. So with two hands, you're able to wiggle this out. until you get separation from your air hose. Of course, your connector is disconnected. And here you can see that the lid is no longer latched in to the grooves of the lower box. So then this just comes out like this. Okay. Set that aside. Very simple. Just pry your old air filter out. This is my new one. The other one was, of course, dirty. And just very simply drops back in. But before you drop that new filter in, this area down here is going to have all kinds of debris in it. Leaves, dirt, sand. Suck that out with a vacuum. It says that same thing in the owner's manual. And then some people might be wondering what this little chamber is, this little area. And I'm pretty sure what this is a bypass valve. So what happens is, this is a spring-loaded little flap. If I get it with my fingernail, I can pry it open like this. And it's spring-loaded. It's got a pretty good spring to it. And I believe what this is it protects the engine, because over here, when cold air or air comes into this box from this hole here, it is possible that you could suck up water. And if you do that, it's going to create a vacuum under this air filter. And the engine's going to want to suck the water through the air filter and into the engine. But once that vacuum is enough to overcome this spring pressure, it's going to open up this valve, and that will let enough air in to break the suction and hopefully not suck water up into your engine. So, like I said, drop the air filter in. Just make sure it's in there and set nice and firmly. Get your lid, and it's going to have the same problem as that screw is going to want to drop down. So with two hands, you're going to start by kind of getting the lid in place. And then I used my magnetic tool, pickup tool, like I mentioned. And I just grab that screw and pull it up out of the way. And using two hands, as I pull that screw up, I'm able to insert the intake box into the hose at the same time. So I'm going to use two hands. I'll be right back. Okay, I used two hands. I wiggled this intake hose as I lifted up on the airbox and slid it into the hose. Then I made sure, I grabbed the box and made sure that my screws are lined up with those holes, and that the whole assembly is set up so that the screws go into their holes and they're not like wonky and sticking out the side. And you just do this one by one for each screw. And then you make sure that this upper box is mated really well with the lower box. And you just, we'll just screw these in one at a time. So it's plastic, so I'm making sure that as I screw things in, I don't feel any crazy tension, nothing stripping. As soon as I feel anything hard or anything like that, I just back off. The air filters in BMWs used to use just like clips and grommets, so it was a lot less labor intensive to replace an air filter, but I suppose this seals it up a little bit better. Alright, I'm going to finish screwing all these in, and I'll be back. Okay, I got all six screws tightened down. Don't forget the one that's hidden underneath where the electrical connector would go. Speaking of which, let's get that connector and we'll just pop it back in. Once it pops back in, you're going to push down on the locking tab. Okay, and just to reiterate, to unlock that tab, just use a small screwdriver and just gently pry up on it. Pry out on it this way. And then here's our hose clamp. So we'll slide that up right here. And then it's a 6mm, so you can use a variety of things to tighten this. I'm just going to use this nut driver type thing. And as I tighten this hose clamp, I just make sure I have a good hose connection. it's gonna clamp down on it. Just give it a little shake, make sure we're good. And that's it. No need to remove this bar.